Commander Zex was having a perfectly normal day until the emergency alarm started screaming through the ship. He rushed to the control room where his crew was staring at their screens with confused expressions. "What's going on?" he asked, still catching his breath. "Sir, we picked up a distress signal," replied his communications officer. "But this one is different." Zex looked at the data. The signal was coming from a solar system they had never seen before. More importantly, it was coming from the third planet, a world that made his skin crawl just looking at the readings. "Look at these numbers," his science officer whispered. "The gravity is crushing, the atmosphere is filled with poisonous gases, and the weather. ... She shuddered. "Massive storms that could tear apart our ship." Zex nodded grimly. This was clearly a death world, one of those nightmare planets where only the most desperate species tried to survive. Usually when they got distress calls from places like this, they found a few scared creatures hiding in caves, begging to be taken somewhere safer. "How long until we reach them?" Zex asked. 3 days, sir." During those 3 days, Zex prepared his team for what they expected to find. They loaded medical supplies for malnourished survivors. They cleared space in their cargo bay for refugees. They even practiced the standard speech they gave to primitive species about joining the galactic community. But when they finally arrived at the edge of the solar system, everything went wrong. "Sir," his navigator called out, voice shaking. "You need to see this." On the main screen appeared something impossible. The death world wasn't empty, wasn't barely inhabited by a few struggling survivors. Instead, they saw massive structures orbiting the planet. Satellites, space stations, and ships. Lots of ships. "That's not possible," Zex muttered. "No one builds civilization on a death world. They survive, barely, until we rescue them." But the evidence was right there in front of them. This wasn't a dying world with desperate survivors. This was a thriving, spacefaring civilization before Zex could process this completely. Their communication system crackled to life. "Unknown vessel. This is Earth's Defense Command. Please identify yourself and state your business in our system." The voice was calm, professional, and completely confident. These weren't scared refugees begging for help. They sounded like a military that was used to being in charge. Zex cleared his throat. "This is Commander Zex of the Galactic. Confederation vessel, peaceful journey. We received your distress signal and came to offer assistance." There was a pause. Then, "Commander Zex, this is Captain Rodriguez of Earth Defense. We appreciate your response, but we didn't send any distress signal. However, you're welcome to visit. Please maintain a safe distance while we prepare proper protocols." Zex stared at the screen. In all his years of first contact missions, no Deathworld species had ever told him to maintain a safe distance. They usually begged him to land immediately and take them away from their horrible planet. "Captain Rodriguez," Zex said carefully, "our records show a distress beacon from your world." "That must be from one of our deep space probes that had a malfunction last month," the human replied. "But since you're here, we'd love to meet you. Just give us a day to set up proper welcoming procedures." "Welcoming procedures?" Zex looked around. At his confused crew, Deathworld survivors didn't have welcoming procedures. They had desperate evacuation plans. Over the next few hours, they watched in amazement as the planet below them buzzed with activity. Ships moved between the surface and the orbital stations. Lights twinkled from what looked like enormous cities. And the energy readings ... This world was using more power than some entire star systems. "Commander," his science officer said quietly, "I'm reading something strange." "What now?" "The planet's surface. It's not what we expected. Where we should see barren wastelands and survival bunkers, I'm seeing gardens, forests, and those cities aren't built underground for protection. They're built right out in the open, like they're not afraid of anything." Zex felt a chill run down his spine. A species that wasn't afraid of their death world, that built cities in the open instead of hiding underground, that had time to develop welcoming procedures instead of spending every moment just trying to survive. The next morning, Captain Rodriguez contacted them again. Commander Zex, we're ready to receive a diplomatic party. Our shuttle bay can accommodate your vessel, if you'd like to visit personally. As Zex prepared to board a shuttle with his team, he couldn't shake a growing feeling of unease. Everything about this first contact was wrong. Deathworld species were supposed to be grateful, desperate, and eager to leave their horrible planets behind. These humans sounded like they actually liked living on their world. When their shuttle approached the space station, Zex got his first close look at human engineering. The station wasn't just functional, it was beautiful. Smooth lines, elegant curves, and what looked like windows facing the planet below. Who put windows facing a death world? Weren't they afraid to look at it? The docking bay was spotless and efficient. As their shuttle settled down, Zex saw humans moving around outside in what looked like regular work clothes, not survival gear. They walked with confidence, like people who had never had to hide from their environment. The airlock opened, and Captain Rodriguez stepped forward to greet them. She was tall, healthy-looking, and had the kind of easy smile that came from someone who had never known real fear. "Welcome to Earth Station Alpha," she said warmly. "We're honored to meet our first galactic neighbors." Zex managed a polite response, but his mind was racing. This woman looked like she had grown up on a garden world, not a planet that should have been trying to eliminate her species for thousands of years. As they walked through the station, Zex noticed things that made no sense. The walls had artwork, actual decorative paintings instead of survival instructions. There were plants growing in containers, apparently just for beauty. And through those windows he had noticed earlier, he could see humans actually looking down at their planet with what appeared to be fondness. "Captain Rodriguez," Zex said carefully, "forgive my curiosity, but your world, the readings we get suggest it's quite challenging to live on." She laughed. "Oh, Earth. Yeah, she keeps us on our toes. But that's what makes life interesting, don't you think? We've learned to work with her moods over the years. Work with her moods." Zex stared. She was talking about a death world like it was a slightly difficult neighbor, not a constant threat to her species' existence. As their tours continued, Zex sent private messages back to his ship reporting what he was seeing. The responses from Galactic Command grew increasingly urgent with each update. By the time they returned to their ship that evening, the message was simple, but terrifying. If this species has mastered their death world instead of just surviving it, what might they be capable of doing to other worlds? For the first time in his career, Zex realized that his rescue mission might have discovered something far more significant than a few grateful survivors. He might have found the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they seemed perfectly happy right where they were. Dr. Valencia had studied death worlds for 30 years, but nothing had prepared her for what she saw when the shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere. "This can't be right," she whispered, pressing her face against the window. Below them stretched a world that defied everything she knew about planetary survival. Where she expected to see gray wastelands and protective domes, she saw green forests stretching to the horizon. Where there should have been underground cities hidden from the harsh environment, she saw gleaming towers reaching toward the sky like they were celebrating the very atmosphere that should have been trying to destroy them. Captain Rodriguez, who was piloting their tour shuttle, noticed her confusion. "First time seeing Earth from above." "I've seen death worlds before," Dr. Valencia said slowly, "but they're usually ... different." "How so?" Dr. Valencia struggled to find the right words. "Well, species that survive on dangerous worlds typically build everything underground. Conserve resources. They focus entirely on staying alive." She gestured toward the window. "You've turned your entire planet into a garden." Captain Rodriguez smiled. "We'd like to think we've learned to dance with Earth instead of fighting her." As their shuttle descended toward what humans called New York City, Dr. Valencia felt her understanding of evolution crumble. The city wasn't built for protection, it was built for beauty. Massive towers of glass and steel rose from the ground like crystal formations, catching sunlight and reflecting it in patterns that served no survival purpose whatsoever. "Those buildings," she said, "they're so ... exposed. Aren't you worried? About storms? Earthquakes?" "Oh, they happen," Rodriguez replied casually. We just build everything to handle whatever Earth throws at us. Actually, some of our best architecture comes from figuring out how to make buildings that can sway with earthquakes and flex with strong winds. Dr. Valencia blinked. You design your buildings to work with disasters? Sure, fighting Earth is exhausting. Working with her is much more fun. When they landed, Dr. Valencia's shock only deepened. The spaceport wasn't a grim facility focused purely on function. It had gardens inside, actual living plants growing just for decoration. There were windows everywhere, as if humans enjoyed looking at their supposedly deadly world. But what really confused her was the people. Humans walked around like they owned the place, which technically they did. But Deathworld survivors weren't supposed to act like this. They should have been nervous, constantly watching for danger, conserving their energy for survival. Instead, she watched human children running around playing games. Not survival training disguised as play, actual games that seemed designed purely for enjoyment. She saw adults sitting in outdoor cafes, eating food that looked like it came from dozens of different plants and animals. On a death world, you ate whatever kept you alive. You didn't have cuisine. Dr. Valencia, Captain Rodriguez said, There's someone I'd like you to meet. She introduced her to Dr. Kim, a human biologist who specialized in what they called environmental harmony. Dr. Valencia had never heard the term before. Environmental harmony? She asked. Dr. Kim's eyes lit up. It's how we've learned to live as part of Earth's ecosystem, instead of fighting against it. For example, instead of building dams to stop rivers, we design cities that work with flood patterns, instead of destroying forests to make farmland. We've learned to grow food in ways that actually help forests thrive. Dr. Valencia felt dizzy. But death worlds are supposed to be hostile. Your job as an intelligent species is to overcome that hostility. Hostility? Dr. Kim looked genuinely puzzled. Earth isn't hostile. She's just energetic. Once you learn her patterns, she's incredibly generous. To prove her point, Dr. Kim took Dr. Valencia on a tour of a human farm. But this wasn't like any agricultural system Dr. Valencia had ever seen. Instead of neat rows of single crops, protected by barriers, she saw a complex ecosystem where dozens of different plants grew together. Animals wandered freely among the crops, apparently helping rather than harming the growing process. This tornado alley, Dr. Kim explained as they walked, used to be considered too dangerous for farming. But we learned that the soil here is incredibly rich because of all that storm activity. So instead of avoiding the storms, we built underground root cellars and learned to plant crops that actually benefit from the wind patterns. Dr. Valencia stared. You farm in tornado zones? For fun? Well, not just for fun, Dr. Kim laughed. The food that grows here is amazing. Have you ever tasted corn that's been wind-pollinated by 3 different storm systems? The answer was no, and Dr. Valencia was beginning to suspect that no other species in the galaxy had either. Their next stop was what humans called a school. Dr. Valencia expected to find young humans learning basic survival skills. Instead, she found something that made her question everything she thought she knew about intelligent species. Human children, some barely old enough to walk, were learning to swim. Not in calm, controlled pools, but in what appeared to be actual rivers with currents. When Dr. Valencia expressed concern, the human teacher laughed. Oh, this is just basic water safety, the teacher explained. By the time they're teenagers, they'll be swimming in oceans. Oceans. Dr. Valencia's voice cracked. Our oceans are filled with predators. Some of them, sure. That's why we teach the kids to understand marine ecosystems. If you know how ocean life works, you can swim safely pretty much anywhere. Dr. Valencia watched a group of human children, none older than what other species would consider young adults, planning something they called a camping trip. They were discussing which mountains to climb, which rivers to raft down, and whether they wanted to camp in a desert or a forest. Wait, Dr. Valencia interrupted. You're planning to take children into wilderness areas? Alone? The teacher looked confused. Well, not alone. They'll have their camping group, usually about 6 kids per group. But what if something goes wrong? What if there are predators? What if someone gets hurt? That's why we teach them first aid, wilderness, survival, and how to work as a team, the teacher said patiently. These skills are just part of growing up human. Dr. Valencia excused herself and contacted her ship. Commander Zex, she said. Quietly, we need to talk. What have you found? His voice crackled through her communicator. Sir, I don't think these are Death World survivors. I think there's something else entirely. Do you mean? Dr. Valencia looked around at human children laughing as they planned adventures that would terrify trained soldiers from her species. I think they're Death World natives. Not survivors who barely made it. Natives who evolved here and made this place home? That's impossible, Zex replied. Death Worlds don't produce native intelligent species. Now the environment is too hostile. Commander, Dr. Valencia said slowly. What if we've been thinking about this backwards? What if Earth isn't hostile to humans because they're not fighting it? What if they're so perfectly adapted to this world that they don't see it as dangerous at all? The silence on the communicator stretched for a long moment. Dr. Valencia, Zex finally said, if that's true, then we may have discovered something much more significant than a species that survived their death world. What's that, sir? We may have found a species that turned a death world into home. And if they can do that to their own planet, ... double quotes. What might they be capable of? Doing 2 hours? Ambassador Torres had dealt with first contact situations for 20 years. But she had never seen aliens look so worried during what was supposed to be a friendly cultural exchange. Is everything all right? Through the Earth Defense Academy, you seem ... tense. Zex tried to smile, but his eyes kept darting around nervously. It's just that your facilities are quite ... impressive. Torres followed his gaze. They were watching human cadets go through what she considered basic training exercises. Nothing too intense, just standard physical conditioning, emergency response drills, and teamwork challenges. But the alien visitors looked like they were watching some kind of advanced military demonstration. This is just our regular education program, Torres explained. Every human goes through something similar. Every human, Dr. Valencia whispered. Mean this isn't specialized training for your military? Well, no, Torres said, confused by their reaction. These are life skills. Everyone learns basic fitness, emergency medicine, crisis management, and teamwork. How else would you handle everyday situations? Commander Zex watched a group of teenagers easily climbing a 30-foot rope wall while discussing their weekend plans. On my world, he said carefully, this level of physical ability would qualify someone for our elite special forces. Torres laughed. Really? But this is just gym class. These kids are barely trying. The tour continued to the Academy's medical training center, where students were practicing what humans called first aid. Dr. Valencia nearly fainted when she saw a teenage human calmly setting a broken bone on a training dummy. She's just a child, Dr. Valencia gasped. How does she know advanced surgical techniques? Surgical techniques? The student Liu overheard and looked confused. This is just basic first aid. I learned this when I was 12. Everyone does. Everyone. Zex's voice cracked slightly. Sure, Liu said cheerfully. You never know when someone might get hurt hiking or playing sports. It's just being a good neighbor. Torres noticed her alien guests exchanging worried glances. Is something wrong? These are really just basic skills. Basic skills, Commander Zex repeated slowly. Yes, I'm beginning to understand that our definitions of basic might be different. Their next stop was the Academy's engineering workshop, where students were building what they called weekend projects. Torres watched with amusement as the aliens stared in shock at teenagers casually constructing devices that looked suspiciously like what other species would consider advanced technology. One student, Patel, was working on something he called a camping stove that could apparently generate enough heat to melt metal. Another, Jackson, had built a portable water purification, a system that could make any liquid safe to drink. A third student, Chen, was programming what she described as a simple navigation drone for her upcoming solo hiking trip. Solo hiking trip? Dr. Valencia squeaked. How old are you? 17, Chen replied. I'm planning to hike the Appalachian Trail this summer. It's only about 2,000 miles, so it should take me around 5 months. 2,000 miles? Alone? Through wilderness? Chen looked puzzled. Well, not completely alone. I'll meet other hikers along the way. I'll have my emergency beacon if anything goes wrong. Dr. Valencia turned to Torres. You let your children wander alone through thousands of miles of dangerous terrain? Dangerous? Torres looked genuinely confused. The Appalachian Trail is one of our easier long-distance hikes. It's well marked, and there are supply towns every few days. Chen's been preparing for this since she was 14. Preparing how? The usual way. Wilderness survival courses, map reading, weather prediction, emergency medical training, equipment maintenance. Torres trailed off as she noticed the aliens looking increasingly pale. These are normal teenage activities. What do your young people do for fun? Commander Zex and Dr. Valencia exchanged glances. On their worlds, young people played safe indoor games and studied theoretical subjects. The idea of teenagers casually planning 1,000-mile solo expeditions through wilderness was absolutely terrifying. But the real shock came during lunch, when the Academy's emergency alarm started blaring. Torres immediately stood up, along with every other human in the building. What's happening? Zex asked, expecting to see panic. Earthquake drill, Torres said calmly. Nothing serious. What followed made the aliens question everything they thought they knew about civilization. 60 seconds. Every human in the building had moved to designated safe zones with the efficiency of a military unit. But these weren't soldiers. They were teachers, students, cafeteria workers, and maintenance staff. How long do you train for this? Dr. Valencia asked in amazement. Train? A cafeteria worker overheard. Oh, we don't really train for earthquakes. You just learn to feel them coming and know where to go. It's like instinct, I guess. The drill ended, and everyone returned to their normal activities, as if nothing had happened. No one seemed stressed or worried. They just went back to eating lunch and chatting about their plans for the weekend. Ambassador Torres, Commander Zex, said quietly, May I ask you something personal? Of course, do humans have a military? I mean, a separate organization from your regular population? Torres thought about it. Well, yes. We have people who specialize in defense and peacekeeping. But honestly, the main difference is that they focus on larger-scale coordination and specialized equipment. The basic skills are pretty much the same. The same as what? Same as what everyone learns growing up. You know, teamwork, problem-solving, physical fitness, emergency response, leadership skills. Torres paused. Why do you ask? Commander Zex didn't answer immediately. He was too busy watching a group of human children playing something they called Capture the Flag in the Academy courtyard. The level of strategic thinking, coordination, and athletic ability they displayed would have impressed his planet's military generals. Later that evening, back on his ship, Zex received an urgent communication from Galactic Command. Commander. The voice crackled through the speakers. Our analysis of your reports has raised some concerns. What kind of concerns, sir? According to your data, every human citizen possesses capabilities that would qualify them as elite soldiers on most worlds. They're trained from childhood in combat skills, survival techniques, advanced problem-solving, and crisis management.
How?
Sir, with respect, I don't think they see it that way. To them, these are just normal life skills. That's exactly what concerns us, Commander. A species that considers military-level training to be normal childhood education and that produces civilians. With special forces capabilities, represents a potential threat unlike anything we've encountered. Zex looked out his window at Earth, where millions of humans were going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their normal activities were terrifying, the most advanced military alliance in the galaxy. Sir, he said quietly, I don't think they mean to be threatening. I think they're just human. That's the problem, Commander. If this is what humans are like when they're trying to be friendly, what might they be capable of if they decided to be something else? Dr. Valencia thought she was prepared for anything after 3 days on Earth. But the human festival made her question everything she believed about evolution and survival. Welcome to Global Unity Day, announced Mayor Foster as she led the alien delegation through the crowded streets of what humans called downtown Denver. It's our biggest celebration of the year. Dr. Valencia expected to see the usual Death World survivor behavior, careful rationing of resources, guarded interactions between groups, and the kind of grim efficiency that came from a species that had barely escaped extinction. Instead, she saw something that made her scientific mind reel. Millions of humans had gathered in one place, not for protection or resource distribution, but apparently just to have fun together. They were sharing food freely with complete strangers. Children from different families played together as if they were all related. And most shocking of all, humans were giving away valuable resources to people they had never met before. "I don't understand," Dr. Valencia said to Mayor Foster. "That family just gave their extra food to those people over there. Don't they need those resources for themselves?" Mayor Foster looked confused. Well, the Johnson family brought way too much food for just 4 people. The Martinez family drove 12 hours to get here and didn't have time to pack lunch, so they shared. That's just ... normal. What if the Johnsons need that food later? What if resources become scarce and someone else will share with them? Mayor Foster said simply, "That's how it works." Dr. Valencia watched a group of human teenagers teaching alien visitors how to play something called volleyball. The humans were clearly much better at the game, but instead of competing against the aliens, they were patiently explaining the rules and celebrating every time their new friends managed to hit the ball correctly. "Why aren't they competing too?" "Win?" Dr. Valencia asked. "Win what?" replied one of the teenagers, a girl named Brooke. "The fun is in playing together. If we just beat them easily, that wouldn't be fun for anyone." This made no evolutionary sense to Dr. Valencia. Competitive species competed. They didn't voluntarily give up advantages to make opponents stronger. Yet here were humans actively teaching potential rivals how to match their abilities. The festival continued with what humans called cultural sharing. Dr. Valencia watched in amazement as different human groups took turns presenting their music, food, and traditions to everyone else. But instead of guarding their cultural secrets, they were actively teaching them to anyone who wanted to learn. She saw
Japanese humans
teaching Mexican humans how to fold origami. She watched African humans showing European humans traditional dance steps. Most incredible of all, she witnessed American humans learning Chinese calligraphy from Chinese humans while simultaneously teaching them baseball techniques. "Don't you worry about losing your cultural identity?" Dr. Valencia asked Professor Williams, an anthropologist who was explaining the festival's purpose. "Losing it?" Professor Williams laughed. "We're multiplying it. Every time someone learns one of our traditions, there are more people in the world who can keep it alive. And every time we learn someone else's traditions, we become richer as a culture." But the moment that broke Dr. Valencia's understanding of evolution came when she witnessed humans responding to an actual emergency. A sudden thunderstorm hit the festival, and Dr. Valencia expected chaos, competition for shelter, and the breakdown of social cooperation that happened when resources became limited. Instead, she saw something impossible. Within minutes, humans had organized themselves into the most efficient emergency response she had ever witnessed. People with cars began offering rides to strangers. Families with large umbrellas shared them with anyone nearby. Restaurant owners started giving away hot food to anyone who looked cold or wet. But most shocking of all, she watched human children, the most vulnerable members of any species, being protected not just by their own families, but by every adult around them. Complete strangers picked up unfamiliar children to carry them to safety. Parents shared their coats with other people's kids. "This doesn't make sense," Dr. Valencia whispered to Commander Zex through her communicator. "They're prioritizing the survival of children who aren't even related to them." "What do you mean?" Zex's voice crackled through the storm. "Natural selection should make them protect their own genetic line first. But these humans are treating all children as if they're equally valuable." She watched a teenage human boy give his jacket to an elderly woman he had never met, leaving himself cold and wet in the storm. When Dr. Valencia asked him why, he looked confused by the question. "She needed it more than I did," he said simply. "I'm young and healthy. I can handle being cold better than she can." Dr. Valencia stared. "But what if you get sick?"
What if?
Helping her puts you at a disadvantage? The boy thought about this seriously. Well, if I get sick, someone will take care of me. That's how it works. As the storm passed and the festival resumed, Dr. Valencia found herself talking to Dr. Kim, the human biologist she had met earlier. Dr. Kim, she said carefully, I need to understand something. Your species shares resources with strangers, teaches skills to potential competitors, and protects individuals who aren't related to you. How did you evolve this way? It goes against every model of survival we know. Dr. Kim smiled. We've studied this ourselves. Turns out cooperation is actually a better survival strategy than competition, at least for complex problems. But that's impossible. Competition drives evolution. Does it? Dr. Kim gestured toward the festival around them. Look at what we've accomplished by working together. We've eliminated diseases that killed millions of people. We've prevented wars that could have destroyed our civilization. We've explored space, created art, and built technologies that no individual human could develop alone. Dr. Valencia processed this. You're saying cooperation made you stronger than competition. Would have? Much stronger. When humans compete, we get small improvements. When we cooperate, we get revolutionary breakthroughs. Dr. Kim paused. Plus, it's more fun to build things together than to fight over scraps. That evening, Dr. Valencia sent a priority report to the Galactic Confederation. Council members, she began, I must revise all previous assessments of human capabilities. We initially feared them because they appeared to possess individual abilities that rival our elite forces, but we missed the real threat. Watching human families clean up the festival grounds together, with strangers working alongside neighbors to restore the area, humans aren't dangerous because they're individually powerful. They're dangerous because they're collectively unstoppable. They've evolved a level of cooperation that allows them to function as a unified organism when necessary, while maintaining individual creativity and initiative. She sent the message and waited for a response. When it came, her heart sank. Dr. Valencia, the reply read, if humans are this cooperative and this capable, they represent an even greater threat than we initially calculated. A unified species with their capabilities could reshape the galaxy, whether they intend to or not. We're sending the fleet. Dr. Valencia looked out at humans laughing together as they shared dinner under the stars, completely unaware that their greatest strength, their ability to work together, had just been declared their most dangerous weapon. Captain Rodriguez was in the middle of her morning coffee when every alarm on Earth Defense Station started screaming at once. Captain, her communications officer called out, we've got a massive fleet approaching from the outer system. Over 300 ships. Rodriguez set down her coffee carefully. She had expected this might happen eventually. The alien visitors had been asking too many worried questions, taking too many notes about human capabilities, and sending too many encrypted messages back to their government. Any communication from them? Yes, ma'am. Admiral Crone wants to speak. With you immediately, the main screen flickered to life, showing an alien face that Rodriguez had never seen before. Unlike Commander Zex and his crew, this alien looked grim and determined. Captain Rodriguez, Admiral Crone began without any pleasantries. I am here to deliver an ultimatum from the Galactic Confederation. I'm listening, Rodriguez replied calmly. Your species has been deemed a threat to galactic stability. Have 3 options. First, accept relocation to a designated world where you can be properly monitored. Second, submit to genetic modification that will reduce your dangerous capabilities. Third, face complete elimination. Rodriguez took another sip of her coffee. How long do we have to decide? 24 hours. Q for the notice, Admiral. I'll get back to you soon. The screen went dark, and Rodriguez's crew stared at her in shock. Captain, her tactical officer said, shouldn't we be preparing our defenses? Alerting Earth Command? Getting ready for battle? Rodriguez smiled. Actually, I have a better idea. Get me President Chen at Global Command. An hour later, something unprecedented began happening across Earth. Every human on the planet received the same message. Humanity has been invited to throw the biggest welcome party in our history. Our galactic neighbors are worried about us, so let's show them who we really are. Admiral Crone watched in confusion as humans across the world began celebrating. Instead of military preparations, he saw massive festivals starting in every major city. Instead of weapons being moved into position, he saw stages being built and food being prepared. "What are they doing?" he asked Dr. Valencia, who was still on Earth observing. I'm not sure," she replied. "It looks like they're throwing a party." Within hours, something extraordinary began broadcasting from Earth. Every communication frequency was filled with human music, art, poetry, and stories. Scientists shared breakthrough discoveries that could cure diseases affecting billions of beings across the galaxy. Engineers published designs for technologies that could turn hostile worlds into gardens. Admiral Crone received a personal message from President. "Admiral, we understand you're concerned about humanity. Rather than try to convince you with words, we'd like to show you what we're really about. Every human on Earth is participating in the largest cultural exchange in our history. Everything. We know everything we've learned, everything we've created. We're sharing it freely with the galaxy." "This is some kind of trick," Admiral Crone muttered, but he couldn't look away from the streams of information flowing from Earth. Dr. Valencia, watching from the surface, saw something that made her heart race. Humans weren't just sharing their knowledge, they were sharing solutions to problems that had plagued galactic civilization for centuries. Medical researchers were broadcasting cures for diseases that had killed billions. Environmental engineers were sharing techniques for restoring damaged worlds. Social scientists were presenting models for resolving conflicts that had lasted for generations. But most importantly, they were teaching. It's not just sharing information, but actively helping other species understand and implement human innovations. Admiral Dr. Valencia called from the surface. "You need to see this." She transmitted footage of human children making video messages for alien children across the galaxy, teaching them games that built cooperation and trust. She showed human artists creating works that celebrated the diversity of galactic species. She documented human engineers working around the clock to adapt their technologies for different alien biologies. On Admiral Crone's flagship, something unprecedented began happening. His own crew started crying while watching human poetry readings. His military analysts were frantically taking notes on human organizational methods that could solve supply chain problems across the fleet. His ship's doctor was begging for access. 2 human medical journals that could save lives throughout the Confederation. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving thousands of messages from ships across the fleet. The crews are. They're asking if we can stay longer to learn more from the humans." Admiral Crone felt his certainty crumbling, but they're dangerous. They could conquer the galaxy with their capabilities. Admiral Dr. Valencia's voice came through clearly. "I don't think humans conquer things. I think they transform them." As the 24-hour deadline approached, Admiral Crone found himself facing a choice he had never expected. His original mission was to contain or eliminate a threat, but watching Earth's response to his ultimatum, he realized he might have discovered something far more valuable than another conquered species. "Captain Rodriguez," he finally called Earth. "Yes, Admiral. Your 24 hours are up. What is humanity's answer?" Rodriguez smiled. "Admiral, humanity doesn't have an answer. They have a question." "What question would you like to stay for?" "Dinner? We're having a cookout tonight, and we'd love to have you and your crews join us. We've been working all day to prepare foods that are safe for your species to eat." Admiral Crone stared at the screen. In all his years of military service, no one had ever responded to his ultimatum by inviting him to dinner. "Captain Rodriguez," he said slowly, "are you trying to surrender?" "Surrender?" Rodriguez looked genuinely confused. "Admiral, we're trying to be friends. We figure if you're worried about what humans might do, the best way to find out is to get to know us." That evening, Admiral Crone found himself sitting at a picnic table in a park in Colorado, eating something humans called barbecue. While children played games around him and adults shared stories about their lives and dreams, Admiral said, a human child named Tyler tugging on his sleeve, "Do you want to learn how to play frisbee?" Looking at the boy's hopeful face, Admiral Kron realized that humanity had done something impossible. They had defeated his massive fleet without firing a single shot. They had conquered his fears by refusing to be afraid. They had won a war by insisting it was actually a friendship. 6 months later, Admiral Kron sent his final report to the Galactic Confederation. Humanity is indeed capable of transforming the galaxy. However, I recommend we let them do it. The galaxy they would create is better than the one we have now. Commander Zex, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Confederation, smiled as he watched human children teaching alien visitors how to build sandcastles on a beach. The galaxy wasn't falling to humanity's military might. It was evolving through humanity's irrepressible belief that any problem could be solved if people worked together with enough creativity, determination, and hope.